I got the arcade blues, I got the arcade blues, I got the arcade blues so bad. I got the arcade blues, I got the arcade blues, that's trouble I never had. That's trouble I never had. These silk dress women, that's all they's always had. These silk dress women, make a married man feel bad. Make a married man feel bad. If you got a good woman, I'd advise you to leave her at home. Them arcade boys won't let a good woman alone. Won't let a good woman alone. If you got a good woman, don't you ever bring her into town. 'Cause a red-headed woman is a red-headed woman, make a gray rabbit love a hound. Make a gray rabbit love a hound. Like a great big Cadillac, it'll carry you over to the graveyard, boys, and man won't bring you back. That will not bring you back. Don't lay my head upon some railroad track. It'll carry me away, but it will not bring me back. It will not bring me back.
Okie dokie. Here we go. Alright, folks. It's time. It is time for an Ask Me Anything session. Our little weekly chance to get your burning banjo questions answered. If you're new here, it's pretty self-explanatory by the title there. Any banjo-related questions, let's get them answered, get some discussions going on that and some related topics. That's what we do here in the Ask Me Anything session. Today's a special candlelight edition. I always forget to bring the candles along for the journey, but today we have our ambiance, and we have with us Miss Kelly up there in her antechamber.
Good morning.
Hey. How's it going?
Well, I'm feeling like I want to light my candle over here now that you've got yours lit. I feel like my ambiance might not be quite as... I do have a lovely vase full of Gerbera daisies, though, here that is brightening my life as much as those candles probably are brightening yours. So, yeah. It is a beautiful day, hearkening of spring here in St. Louis. We've had a few kind of warmish days. I actually got out yesterday afternoon after work and finished planting up my winter crops, I like to call them, but no, my early season stuff, my spinach and arugula and radishes, which I wanted to plant a couple weeks ago, but it has rained. So I finally got it done yesterday. So that feels really good. So yeah, spring is happening. My daffodils are blooming. My tulips are blooming. It's wonderful.
Love it. And today we're going live to the whole world, folks, to all of YouTube anyhow. All the YouTube subscribers out there should be if they're glancing at their YouTube right now, they should be aware that we've gone live. We do this from time to time. This is normally a members-only experience here. This is our weekly members-only Ask Me Anything, but we like to send it out to the world at large. And today is one of those days. So here we are.
Indeed. So welcome. Yeah.
Yeah. So, if you're a member and you got here through your lesson library and your membership area, then you're probably on our little secret page watching this. But if you're on YouTube, you also have a little chat function there, and Miss Kelly's going to try to keep track of all of them and relay some questions, comments, etc. to me.
I'm not going to try. I'm going to do. I'm going to Yoda this
There
business.
is no try.
Yeah.
That's right.
There is no try. There's only do.
I misspoke there. I forgot who I was dealing with.
Well, no, I just want to assure everybody I'm here, and I'm waiting for your comments and your questions.
She's ready.
So,
Bring it. Fire away. So don't be shy out there if you got some questions. And, especially if we don't have a lot of rapid fire banjo questions coming, just ask me anything. Let's live true to our titles here. So we're going to be titularly stringent today. And I'll let you ask me anything, but I will prioritize banjo-related questions. And I will reserve the right to not answer if I feel like I need to plead the fifth.
If there's something about banjo that you don't know, I don't see how that would be possible.
Well, or if I don't want to incriminate myself,
There you go. We are talking about banjo. We're getting a couple folks checking in. It's 35 degrees where Brother Bill is out there on old Vashon Island. They've got a foggy island morning there. And then Tony in the UK says that his weather dropped from 18 degrees Celsius to 10 Celsius today, with a forecast for possible snow later this week. So they're expecting some big storms. They have also sprung forward with their clocks. So summer's next. That's an indicator of spring, even if you're getting third or fourth winter, as so often happens in various parts of the country. We're still holding our breath for if we will experience third winter. We think we've gotten through second winter, but
that's usually when third winter begins.
That's usually when third winter begins. So we shall see. But Bill is saying that among finger picking sessions, he's in the process of finally transcribing the log of his sailing trip from Bora Bora to Honolulu back in 1997. Amazing.
I love this stuff. I love how y'all just bust out every once in a while. Whatever wonderful experiences we didn't realize. I don't think we had any idea that had happened.
No.
But,
and I'm thinking, I want to know a lot more about this. So if you transcribe this log, Bill, I don't know where you're planning on sharing it, but if you put it somewhere, link to it in the banter community area, because I want to read about your 1997 sailing trip. I have a lot of questions about that have nothing to do with the banjo, but that's pretty awesome that you're doing that.
Right now we're open forum until somebody does ask a banjo question. Any questions are allowed, but yeah, I'd like to see that as well. I'm sure there will be follow-up questions for old Brother Bill once that happens.
I would guess so, for sure. So you're drawing your banjo man.
This is slightly different, man, here.
Is it? I feel like it's a self-portrait, whatever it is you have going on.
Yeah, this might be a retro self-portrait of yours.
I do recognize the overalls.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah.
It used to be my only item of clothing.
There
we go.
I would like to assure the people that is not the truth, but it is actually the truth. Yeah. I mean, you had some shirts, but you mostly only owned overalls for a large part of your early life. Not early, like 20s, like when you were in your 20s.
Yeah. Right up into the old 30.
Yeah, you had overalls for everyday wear. You had overalls for stage wear. You even had overall outfits for fancy occasions like weddings.
Yeah, that's why I just put my dress shirt on over the overalls.
Yeah.
Work like a charm. You just got to make sure you live in the mountains of Colorado and you can get away with that stuff. Till the
There
cows,
you go.
till the grouse
Uh,
come home.
Well, Brother Bill is promising to share his log with us. So, Bill, thank you. I will look forward to that. That's pretty awesome. Um, I don't know if I've ever taken a trip. Well, I mean, sailing a log would be a particular thing, I guess. But um, I wonder where else you could log things.
Well, you and I, Kelly and I, for a little while, we were working a job where we would load up a box truck full of inventory out in Pennsylvania and then spend 3 months on the road driving from to colleges, certain colleges, setting up shop for a week or two at a time. We would traverse the entire country from start in Pennsylvania. We'd go all the way to the West Coast, all the way down the coast, work our way back. Um,
All the
and
way up the coast, all the
yeah,
way
and
across.
on those journeys, we were probably supposed to be having a log. We did not.
Well,
We
we had
also,
mileage logs. I know that,
yeah, we
but
did have
I don't
mileage
know about
logs.
other
We didn't have
kinds.
official logs, and it was never quite understood whether we were or were not supposed to pull into way stations. Never established that.
All
It
right, you
was
didn't have to go into that part.
hey, it wasn't us. It was the company's call.
You know what? The idea of logs, though, is kind of interesting because, I think I'm not really, for instance, a diary person. That's kind of, to me, that's a weird old fashioned term anyway. But like the idea of journaling is so popular, and yet it could be hard to know what's valuable. But lately, I've been thinking a lot more about how a lot of times if we can write out the things that we're experiencing, then we do have a reference for either our growth or the things that we're learning or the way we're processing emotions or whatever it may be. And so taking that idea of, say, like a cheesy diary out of it, my apologies if anybody keeps a diary, but that's just my feeling toward my own idea of a diary. But and logging things that might show something like growth, it puts me in mind of Beeb's blog that he writes. Barely a Boomer is his blog, and he tends to write about things he's learning or experiences he's having. Sometimes it applies to the banjo, sometimes it's other things in life. And there's something really valuable about that. I'm learning more and more about how that can be a way to process and to understand, to grow, to track growth. So I don't know. I've gone through various periods in life where I've journaled, but I'm thinking about getting back into it, but really thinking about what it is I want to track. And I think maybe what I'm going to do is something along the ideas of a project, kind of like a sailing trip. Like, okay, I want to learn to do this on the guitar over the course of this year. So maybe I'll track progress that way, or in other areas of life. So I like the idea of a log.
Yeah, there's no question that it's helpful, and as you mentioned, many people find journaling to be helpful in a variety of ways, whether it's the old-fashioned diary style or some of the more contemporary means that people use journaling in the mornings and the evenings. Um, I do that. I know the last set of logs I guess I kept, which I haven't been keeping up on lately, was with my exercise and workout. Kind of I kind of have like a
That's right.
three-way thing, like depending on where I am, what phase of life I'm in. When I'm concentrating on my physical health, that usually has to do with my what I'm eating when I'm exercising, and I track things like different activities I've done, and I'll track my general how I'm feeling on a daily basis and how much I'm
Mm-hmm.
weighing. And I've always done that just by hand, even though I do a lot of things automated and computationally lately. But I always grab just a little log book and log it out. So I find that stuff really useful. And again, like when I do that, it's always for not a set period of time. It's always for a certain period of time. And then when I find that I've kind of stabilized and my routine has kind of become a normalized part of my weekly and daily actions, then a lot of times I'll just stop using the log until I find I need to kind of reinvigorate myself with some sort of commitment and some sort of, that ritual of stopping to actually think about what you've done and what you need to do and tracking what you're doing. It's all very useful. Which reminds me of this old thing that I think there's no shortage of moments where I recommend this to folks, but if you go into your lesson library and you go down to your perfect practice course, right there, and you go into the first section here, organization and intention. Man, right there, it's really simple stuff. We do some goal setting, musical goal setting. Then you schedule your practice sessions, which is kind of really a matter of committing to a certain amount of time and days that you're going to commit to practicing each week. And then we take a practice regimen where we get really nerdy about that certain amount of time. Let's say it's a half an hour, 5 days a week. It's a good baseline if you need some sort of guidance. We take our goals and we kind of reverse engineer those musical goals into exercises and practice focuses, put them into a weekly regimen, spread those focuses out through a little 5-day plan basically, and bust each of those days into 5 or 10 minute sections where we're just concentrating on one particular idea. Man, if you go through that process regularly, kind of like I was just describing with logging for like some health habits. If you do this with your banjo playing and your musical studies, it is so helpful. And it doesn't matter, like I was saying with the personal log stuff, it doesn't matter if I do it every day and I do it perfectly or not. What matters is that I do it at all and that I do it cyclically, that I return to that practice intermittently. So it's okay if it's been a couple months since I've written anything out in a log, or for me it's been about 3 or 4 months since I did an official practice regimen for myself. I get to go through the process a lot when I'm working with students and advising them online or in person, but I recommend that you do the same. And so a lot of you out there have already done this once. You went through the course, or you asked me for some advice in this area and I said, hey, check out these materials and do this, and you did it once. That's way better than zero. But go back and do it again, especially if it didn't stick. The real key too, and I used to kind of save this for the great reveal, but now I just tell you up front, like the cool thing is it doesn't matter if you stick to this perfectly. It doesn't matter if you fail epically in sticking to this thing. It's about going through this process and restating, redefining, reevaluating your goals and why you have those particular musical goals. What are your true motivations behind them? And then going through the process, however messy it may be, of trying to turn those into actionable, specific items of practice that you can put in your regimen. And the cool thing about this, if you're inside the Play Better Banjo world and you have access to this stuff, you get stuck on it, go ahead and ask me some questions. I'll help you out as best I can. But the main thing is that you just go through that process on your own, and you do as much of it as you can on your own. And then it's just a rinse and repeat kind of situation. So speaking of logs, there we go. I masterfully moved that conversation right into banjo-related topics. Look at them go. What a skill. All right, that's been on mine too, because I've been working with a couple people in the last 2 weeks where we've referenced this little section, and pretty awesome. I mean, I've done that stuff outside of musical endeavors as well as Kelly has, and Kelly leads a lot of folks too, so they're always goal setting and doing related stuff, especially a lot of just evaluating. The big part of that, I think, one of the big benefits is stopping to evaluate where you are, where you want to be, why you want to be there. And that's always useful.
I agree. There's something about that idea of it making you be present in the present moment instead of always either. I mean, we can have a tendency to think about the past or think about the future and forget to acknowledge our present. And the more we can acknowledge where we are, then there's more of an opportunity to figure out where we need to go or to be open to where we need to go, whatever that growth may look like. So, yeah, it seems that we've established that there's a
Mhm.
lot of value to these sorts of exercises. I feel like it's one of those things where it's like when my grandmother used to give me castor oil. Like it's like this is ultimately going to help you, but it feels kind of gross at the moment. And by gross, I mean it feels like a lot of work, right? Like
No
it
pain,
feels
no
like a lot of
gain.
work to both get down the castor oil and be present in the moment and keep a log or track growth, and feels easier to just think, how fast can I get to the other end of this thing?
Yeah, but of course, the more you hurry, the slower you're going to get there, right? Like, so that's a mantra that you're going to hear
Ugh,
from me and most every music teacher, but now more and more from folks just teaching you about, life coaching and life in general is, uh, the more frantically you attempt to achieve something, probably the less likely you're going to achieve it quickly. So slow down, focus,
slow is
relax.
smooth and smooth is fast.
Yeah, yeah. So most of what we know these days about effective learning and most of the stuff I teach you, like for instance in that perfect practice course and smattered throughout just all of my videos and talks and all that, is that really what I found is the most powerful um, little techniques and strategies for learning are all kind of counterintuitive. They're all mostly seem paradoxical, which is why most people are hesitant to adopt them officially. But slowing down to play fast, that's probably a question that all music teachers get a lot, especially stringed instrument players. Most of us want to play fast for some reason. We find that that's one of the cooler expressions. Uh, one of the cooler elements of expression on the instrument is to be able to play it really fast. So a lot of times I get that question, how do I play fast? How should I be practicing? How can I speed up? And I always tell people to slow down. If you want to play fast,
Yeah.
slow down. Slow down your practice. Slow
And
down
you
as
know
often as
what?
you can.
It's actually harder to sound good when you're playing slow. You can cover up a lot of stuff when you're playing fast. I feel like the
Yeah.
more I go through my musical journey, the more I realize, oh wait, in singing or in playing, when I slow down, that's when it really shows if I've progressed because
Mm-hmm.
you
And
can
you're
hear everything I'm doing.
yeah, and you'll learn really quickly in the moment how much control you do and don't have over what you're playing. So clawhammer
Right.
style, which is what we have traditionally primarily focused on in the channel, even though we've really gone beyond that in the last year or two. But clawhammer style banjo, I think, is especially difficult for slowing down because it requires this kind of you have gravity and you don't just have like the gravity of a pick or your fingers plucking upward. You have this claw using gravity on its side. Gravity and momentum are part of this process, right? So there are players who are decently good that when I make them slow down, everything falls apart, right? So it'll kind of reveal all the dirty truths behind the scenes if you slow down. But that's also a chance to work on them. And when you're in the slow mo, you're freeing up parts of your brain to analyze and observe and critically think about what's happening, and those parts are pretty much shut down when you're playing fast. Partially because most of your brain function is happening in a relatively in a panic mode, so you're getting a little amygdalian in your in your thinking there, and you're kind of in a mild state of panic, fight or flight kind of state. And when you slow down, you get back in control. You have more time to think about what's going on. You take in a lot more information about your playing as well. So always strive for that. I'd say 90% of the technique questions I get from people, unless it's a specific question where they're worried about whether they're holding something the wrong way, most of the technique related questions I get, I could answer them all with just get in the habit of slowing down. And because when you slow down, you can answer most of the stuff for yourself, and your body can answer most of this stuff, because our bodies know way more than our rational brains about the actual proprioception. What's the word? No, that's not the right word. You know what I'm talking about, though. That all that coordinated system of kind of knowing where to put every little micro movement when it needs to be there, right? Proprioception, that's the word. A lot of that stuff's kind of maybe not built in, but it's already there, and it can be intuitively accessed if we just slow down and practice. You know, the old adage is if you're practicing fast and sloppily, you're just practicing your mistakes. And I think that's a good enough way to state it. I don't think it says everything as well as some other more long-winded ways to explain the benefits of slowing down. But that's usually enough to get people's attention. If you say, oh, if you're practicing your mistakes over and over, you're just going to get really good at making those mistakes, and that's kind of true, right? But I think there's more benefit than just a fear tactic. I think to slowing down. Like I would encourage you to slow down because it's more enjoyable, really, because you can start to find solutions to your own problems if you slow down. A lot of times people ask, well, how do I get a more articulate sound on my boom notes, like on my particular single string strikes? And, I can give little advice about, oh, here's the angle I kind of go at. And I could watch you and say, oh, you might want to try adding a certain, approach to your right hand or something. But, again, you could just slow down. And when you're not getting the result you want, you could probably correct it pretty easily on your own if you're slowing down and taking the time to go, oh, it's these two strings I'm having trouble with. What am I doing? And a lot of times, just by slowing down, you solve the problem. So you realize that, oh, it's not actually a problem I have in my playing in general. It's a problem I have when I speed up prematurely. So age-old advice, but there's a reason, my friends. There's a reason that we teachers will never tire of telling you to slow down. When I write it, you know this if you've been through a lot of my materials, when I write it, I usually write it in all caps just to be annoying. But, that's how important it is. And I often mention that this is a bit of advice that I heard 1,000,000 times. I probably advised it 1,000 or 2,000 times before I really started regularly taking it to heart and doing it myself and practicing what I preached. But that's a great gauge no matter what style or styles you play on your banjo. Take like a clawhammer style if you know how to play the basic clawhammer style, and see, can you slow that down and play a tune? Play a tune? Can you play it slowly, steadily, without really wavering too much on the tempo? And can you play it clearly? Can you get all the different parts of that, the music there to be articulated in the way in which you hope that it would be, right? So as you see, I can do that pretty well with something like Old Joe Clark. Way easier said than done. So get to doing there, friends. All right, so we're articulating our goals, we're logging our progress, and we're slowing down. It's about all you need, really. We could just say that once a week to y'all and probably be doing okay.
Absolutely. We do have a question from out there in YouTube land. Robert is asking, What style do you suggest for an absolute beginner? Ooh, this is a good question.
This is a good question. Absolute beginner. All right, I'm going to take that literally because a lot of us, when we come to an instrument, call ourselves absolute beginners. And then I noticed when I teach some absolute beginners in person, it's slowly revealed that they know quite a bit. And they've played a guitar and they've maybe played the trumpet in school or something. So if you're an absolute beginner and you haven't really ever played a string instrument, then I would start with the clawhammer style. And so the interesting thing is, I was just mentioning like on this side, I used to only do clawhammer, particularly just to kind of have a focus, right? And I've expanded that in the last few years because in practice I play multiple styles on the banjo. So I'll do a 3-finger style, I do a 2-finger thumb lead style, and I dabble in some upstroke styles and some index lead styles. All of which I think ultimately you just put together into your own hybrid style, and you can have a lot of fun, and that's when you're really getting down to business. But when you're starting out, I recommend the clawhammer style. Partly because, let's see if I can do a visual here. This will be crude, and who knows if it'll even be helpful. Let's see. Let me see. Looks like I lost my connection. But I'm going to pull that back up and give you a little visual just because I feel like drawing again. But basically what I'm going to try to demonstrate to you is the way I perceive the learning curve for the different styles. So probably the short answer to your question is if you have a preference, that if you prefer a particular style and you would prefer to play that way, then that's all the information you need. If you love 3-finger bluegrass banjo playing like Earl Scruggs style and all of the Earl Scruggs descendants, if you love Bela Fleck and Tony Trischka and Earl Scruggs and bluegrass music, then just learn 3-finger style. Start right there. No need to inch your way towards it. But if you're kind of into all banjo music, or you don't even know, you just want to kind of get oriented, then I recommend the clawhammer style. The thing about the clawhammer is it's a little tough right in the beginning to get your, so we'll go over here on the left of our hillbilly here. Here's how I visualize the learning curve for like a 3-finger style for most folks, myself included. It's kind of like this. Slow, steady, incremental, and you just kind of slowly make steady improvement like that. There are a lot more fundamental right hand things to learn, and they're a little more complicated, at least conceptually a little more complicated. There's about 8 to 10 things that I would recommend programming into your right hand before you make any big jumps with a 3-finger kind of bluegrass 3-finger style. But it's just steady progress, and one thing builds on the next, just like any of these kind of tracks that you might take. With the clawhammer style, I feel like it's like this. So here's our bluegrass journey of progress, and then we ran out of graphing information there. And then for clawhammer, I would say it's like this. In the beginning, getting the awkward right hand motion can be tough for people, especially if you've played another string instrument before, because it's unlike any other approach that you're going to be used to in Western folk string instruments. So clawhammer starts out with a straight line for a few days or maybe a couple weeks, depending on how you roll. For me, it was a couple weeks at least, trying to get that basic right hand strum. It's a bit of a plateau. For a while, you might not feel like you're getting anywhere. You might have to put quite a bit of time into it for a matter of days or a couple weeks. Then once you get that strum, whoop, it's a hockey stick, as they say in the chart world, right? Once you get that right hand strum down, everything else just builds right on that. There's not too many techniques you have to throw on top of that. Then it's into repertoire and application and getting into tunings and stuff like that. But then you're just good to go. So that was a long way, and hopefully a helpful illustrative way to answer that question. But I think if you don't know where you want to start in the various styles, I would start with clawhammer for that reason. The other good thing about the clawhammer style is that conceptually, for most people, it makes a little more sense when you're just applying it to the most basic of applications, which is to just grab some chords and chord along in a jam or with a song, whether you're gonna accompany yourself while you sing, accompany somebody else while they sing, or just do the chord backup for other instrumental players. You can go so far with just the basic right hand clawhammer technique, boom chicka, a couple little knockdowns, and then learn a few basic open chords, and you could have a lot of musical fun. You could stop right there if that's where your aspirations end, and you could have a lifetime of making music on your own and with other folks. So I think that's where I always like to start people, and the other reason I'll start people there, if I know I'm going to give them multiple paradigms, multiple right hand techniques, I'll still start them at clawhammer, because I feel like if I start them over here on the finger picking plucking styles that are like finger picking guitar and the 3-finger banjo style and the 2-finger styles, then you shift them over to clawhammer later, it'll be a little more of an abrupt, awkward transition. So that's it. I'd recommend clawhammer as a short answer as your first, if you don't already have a preference as to where you want to go. Bottom line, though, anything's going to work. You just want to get your hands on an instrument and start making some music. If you jump into my free beginner course, beginning clawhammer banjo, I think it's called clawhammer crash course, it does just that. It only shows you basics of the instrument, only shows you the clawhammer style, and this shows you a few chords and how to start using those chords to play some songs. And that's it. You can have a lot of fun right there. Alrighty.
Awesome. Well, we're getting some more comments. This one I find very intriguing. This person says, I play a Russian 7-string guitar, and there's also an open G. Now I'm learning the banjo. It's very interesting. I bet it is.
A Russian?
I'm going to have to look into more a Russian 7-string guitar. I feel like I should know more about that.
Yeah, I've definitely never, I do not believe I've ever heard of such a thing. I'm assuming that's a fairly traditional instrument design he's talking about, or they're talking about.
Now we all have homework to do.
Mm-hmm.
We do have a couple other questions though, right?
I will jump in though and say,
Oh.
I think what the commenter was saying was that they have an open G tuning on that 7-string instrument, so now they're playing the banjo, which is these days the standard tuning is open G. Yeah, it never hurts to remember the connections between these instruments, because I played an open G tuning on the guitar before I picked the banjo up, and it's almost exactly the same thing. Also on your standard guitar, if you play guitar, standard tuning, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th strings are exactly the same as your open G, so don't forget that as well, or take note of that if you didn't realize that. So you can translate things between these different modes pretty easily. Okay, what were we saying?
Okay, another question. We have a couple more. Riley is asking, when you capo up on the neck, do you prefer to tune the 5th string up or use a spike?
I prefer to use a spike, and if those of you who don't know, a railroad spike is, well, just that. It comes from a little model railroad sets, right? These little spikes, you can have them, you can do it yourself, or you can have somebody embed them into your fingerboard here underneath your 5th string, and you can use it to just kind of slot your string under there so it automatically frets it for you. So most folks have one right here on their 7th fret, so I could slip that under there. Some folks have a couple. Things can get problematic when you have more than one, but sometimes it works. I prefer the spike, but on this particular banjo, this is my newer of my two main banjos, I have yet to have a spike uh, put on this thing, and I've had it for almost 3 years now, I think. And I've kind of just decided to roll with it. So now I make other decisions on this instrument when it's time for my fifth fret. So it depends on where I'm capoing up to. So if I capo up to the third fret, and I'm going to play in B flat, I'll just tune up there. If I capo up to B and I need to go up to a B, maybe I'll do it. That's probably as far as I can go. That's probably as far as I could confidently go on this banjo. There's some factors like your scale length and stuff like that, and your string gauge, and your just particular banjo, how far you can go with this fifth string and tuning it up before it's going to snap or start causing too much tension on your peg or whatever. I'll go up to B, but sometimes when I get to that threshold up to the B and I'm playing in the fourth fret and I'm playing in the key of B, I might just go down to an F sharp instead. So in here I don't need a railroad spike to get to really match whatever I need up the neck, but really depends on the tuning and what I'm trying to pull off. So I'd prefer, if you have a spike or you're inclined to get one, I would just do that. It makes life pretty easy, and it can make tuning easier because it doesn't throw off the tension of your instrument quite as much as just cranking up that fifth string. This is the most tension on all our strings, is this little guy, and every time you make a big adjustment with that, it's gonna ripple out and kind of mess up all your other strings. So another good tip that I always forget, Chris Cool pointed this out when we were doing our 5-string mess around video, if you've seen that one, is when tuning, always tune your fifth string first. You know, you'll probably have to go back and retune it, right? But always tune that fifth string first, because a lot of us are in the habit of waiting till we get to the end to tune that fifth string, and oftentimes, especially if it's a significant adjustment, it's going to throw the tension off for all the others. More noticeably so than just if you start with the big game changer first. Then it can simplify the process. Now, even we seasoned pros forget that all the time. I forget it most every time. But when I remember, I feel like a bit of a banjo genius. So you can do the same if you remember to hit your fifth string first when tuning. So I think I answered the question, which was whether I prefer using a spike or just retuning. So occasionally I'll retune that fifth string for effect, because we use the spike generally to tune this fifth string up to the root note of the tuning, right? If it's kind of an open tuning or open-ish tuning. Root note of the key usually that we're going to play in, but other times I might want a different effect. I might tune it to the fifth or even the third of the key, just for maybe a little different effect. So I do a lot in B. I'll go to that fifth, that F sharp there. All right,
it feels so much better when you tune down instead of tune up, because when you tune up, I just wait and wait and wait for that thing to pop.
That's why a lot of us tune like this.
Yeah.
When we tune up, which is not a bad habit. These days I have spectacles, which is helpful, but I've come very close to getting a snap string in the eye. I've had them along here and here a couple times, and that's from the old habit of just kind of being too close and tuning up, changing strings or whatnot, and getting your face up in there. It's a real hazard.
All right, so another question here. Sorry. I was
just saying, there's a good habit. Tune like this.
Exactly. All right, another question here from Louie. He's saying, they're saying, my left arm gets really fatigued when playing. Got any tips? And I was debating, is this person left-handed or right-handed? And they clarify for us, my left hand is my fret hand, if that wasn't clear. So this left arm getting really fatigued, I get that. I have short little arms. My guitar feels so heavy sometimes.
Yeah, I mean, I think I would give my main bit of advice there is, it's kind of a no pain, no gain. So if you're getting fatigued, it means you're working those all the muscles that are necessary for you to play, and at least in the configuration in which you're currently practicing and playing. So the good news there is, that should translate into strengthening of all those muscle sets that are being used and that are getting fatigued. So I'll jump in with a caveat right away before I blab on that for a second. Is um, make sure you're getting enough restoration time, right? So if you are getting fatigued, let's say your left hand's getting fatigued a lot, make sure you're taking rest time, you're spending enough time away from practicing for those muscles to actually, I was going to say regenerate. That's not the right verb, but for them to rest and be restored. You need some restoration time. You need it cognitively as well as physically when you're working with all these musical studies. And it's easy, especially for folks like me and a lot of folks who are inclined towards music. We kind of just want to go all in and just nonstop. We want to kind of bang our heads against the wall in an effort to speed the process up. Maybe we'll play 8 hours in a day, and that has its certain benefits, but for the most part, it's a pretty inefficient way to learn. So if you're spending a whole, like, really long sessions playing, that could be part of it. Obviously, it could be ways in which you're holding your arm and your hand and all that. But my guess is if you're feeling the fatigue, another thing I should say, another caveat, is a lot of people don't really think about the fact that we are building and strengthening muscle systems here. They're very small. These are like micro systems. So we forget quite often that all these systems need to be strengthened and built, and they will get stronger and more dexterous as we kind of slowly and steadily and incrementally keep pushing them a little bit, wear them out a little bit, and then let them recover. Recovery, that's the word I was looking for before. In exercise and athletics, they talk about that all the time, but I think it's important for cognitive stuff too. So make sure you're getting enough recovery is probably the best advice I can give you. If after a while, let's say a couple more weeks, you're taking my advice and you think, this isn't my problem, there's something going on here, then it could be some sort of fundamental something you're doing with your body. You can look and watch other players and emulate them, as I'm sure you have, and you can probably tell if you're doing anything too wild. I have a tension awareness exercise in a lot of my lessons. I think on the YouTube channel you can get a hold of me demonstrating that. I think if you're on the Play Better Banjo channel and you look up relaxation or something like that, if you're just searching the videos on this channel, you'll find me walking you through the tension awareness exercise. And among its many benefits, this little habit you can get into of walking yourself through this tension spectrum, that might help you figure out where you might be adding excess tension into your playing, and you might not be aware of where it's happening. And a nice way to get rid of that is not to over-focus on all the mechanics, but to just kind of walk through this tension awareness exercise where you purposely tense up and loosen up while you're playing. And you might find a sweet spot there where you're getting good results to your ear and it starts to feel better and sound better. And usually that comes along with a relaxation in a lot of this area here, or a relative relaxation. So it's probably a combination of all those factors. Part of it is just it's gonna be a little fatigue and recovery that you'll have to go through forever, really. But especially in the earlier formative stages, and then also it may be something in the body. So let's say 4 or 5 weeks down the road, you've done the tension awareness exercises, you've taken all my advice, and you're still having trouble. Then you might want to get extreme and look into things like the Alexander technique or stuff like that, where you can really just study efficient posture and movement of the body. I've never done that. I've known other people who have, and I've read a lot of practice advice and resources that recommend such things. The Art of Practice by Madeline Brewster, I think is her name, and then The Inner Game of Music by Barry Green and Tim Galley. Both have little references to Alexander technique, and I knew one of my early playing partners was the first person I ever knew who introduced me to that, and a climber banjo player who used to live in town was yet another practitioner and teacher of the Alexander technique. So that'd be the extreme end of that journey, is to start going to the source of becoming really efficient and deliberate about how you hold and use your body. I found that I don't need to go to that extreme if I do those previous steps. All right, we're going to have to get going here pretty soon, but it sounds like we just got some momentum going, got some questions rolling in. But
yeah, so quick, we have 2 other questions if you wanna quick fire these. Louis saying he'll be watching the video on tension awareness, so he's saying thanks for that. And then Beebs is saying, in reference to the conversation about railroad spikes, is there some worry about spikes splitting the neck?
Yeah, if you're gonna, that's why I don't put them in myself. And as many of you know, if you're longtime play by banjo people, you know that I'm kind of a monster. I'll just hack away at my instruments.
Yeah.
Like my other Brooks banjo there, when I put those nylon minstrel style strings on there recently, they weren't sticking in the nut, so I just started hacking away with a X-Acto knife, and so I'm not very precious with these things. I use string gauges that are too heavy by anybody's recommendations. I do inadvisable things. When I changed the head here, I hacked away a part of this brand new, beautiful, expensive banjo.
Hey, this was the rapid fire.
Oh, I'm not good at that. So anyway, yes, there's a danger. You have to get a little bitty pilot hole in there first, and then you can kind of tap that thing down in there. So I always took it to a friend of mine who used to work at our local folk music store, and he would do it for me. I haven't done as much on this one. If you are going to do it on your own, make sure you get a little bitty pilot hole maker, and be careful with splitting your neck. So that's just a general woodworking thing too. You're gonna be embedding metal into some wood, some hardwood, then you're going to want to get a little bitty pilot hole in there to kind of mitigate the chances of splitting. What's the other question?
All right. We actually have more questions that we can answer in the amount of time that we have. So we'll say a big thanks to all of y'all, and note that we'll be, we do this every week in the membership area, but we do plan to be doing this more on YouTube so that everybody can join in. So a final question then for you, Ryan. Robert's asking, about how long should I practice every day?
Yeah, that long. What I always give as my baseline is half hour a day, 5 days a week. That's only 2.5 hours a week that you're committing to practicing, which is not much, right? 2.5 hours. Most of us can find that much time in our week, even if we have to get creative to do so. So that's I would recommend that as a baseline, because what really counts the most is that you're regularly practicing, and that you're if you have a limited amount of time to practice, then you should really ramp up how deliberately you practice. So you probably want to check out my resources on like setting goals and making a practice regimen and all that, so you can really hone in on those little half-hour sessions. If you only have 5 half-hour sessions through a week, and that's the only time you have to practice, then you may want to get deliberate with it as well. The other little bit of advice I'll give you is to make sure to, no matter how long you practice and how often you practice, make sure to divvy up your focus in those sessions to where you're not just doing one thing over and over for an extended period of time. Every 5 to 10 minutes, and I use a timer sometimes, so you use a timer on your phone. I've got a little Chrome egg timer here. It's helpful sometimes to set little timers to just pop you out of your wherever you are every 5 to 10 minutes so that you can ask yourself, should I switch focuses? And the answer is usually yes. 5 to 10 minutes on any given skill or tune or whatever. It's probably a good move. Obviously, when you're working on longer form stuff like a whole tune or song, sometimes you'll want to just focus there. But when you're just trying to improve your skills and kind of reinforce stuff you've already learned, then bust those practice sessions up into little bits. With bottom line, 5 days a week, 30 minutes a day, that's a good baseline, and then you can go beyond that all you want.
Awesome.
Alrighty.
Well, I'm sorry we've hit time, y'all. We have had some
Yeah.
questions we haven't been able to get to, so sorry about that, but we'll be doing this again. So, and maybe Ryan, you can jump on YouTube at some point and answer some of these questions as well. So
Yeah, and if I failed to do that, send them to me at ryan@playbetterbanjo.com, or just put them in the comments of some YouTube videos, and I'll see them. And so at the very least, I might make a little video to answer them, or I'll just get back to you in some form. So
awesome.
Alrighty.
Well, thanks, y'all. Happy banjoing out there.
Yeah. Go make some